FBI agent Carter thought they were the only ones hunting the serial killer, until she spotted him in the security footage, a young man in different disguises following the same target. The problem? He'd already lied to investigators about knowing nothing. What Agent Carter discovered would turn a serial killer investigation into a deadly race against revenge. Seattle, Washington, October 15, 2024. FBI agent Rebecca Carter had been analyzing surveillance footage for 6 weeks straight. 7 women dead across King County in 8 months. All brunettes aged 22 to 28, all found with identical stab wounds to the chest and neck. The killer they'd dubbed the Shadow had managed to avoid clear identification until now, operating with precision that suggested law enforcement knowledge. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a downtown parking garage camera most investigators had overlooked. Frame 2341 showed their suspect clearly for the first time. White male, approximately 30 years old, dark hair, distinctive scar running from his left ear to his jawline. The facial recognition software worked 12 hours before producing a match. Daniel Morrison, 31, unemployed since 2022, with a criminal history of stalking and sexual assault. Carter immediately assembled a surveillance team to monitor Morrison's Capitol Hill apartment. The building was old with limited security, making covert observation challenging. But as Carter compiled additional footage from traffic cameras and business security systems to establish Morrison's movement patterns over the previous month, something unusual caught her attention that changed everything. In camera after camera, spanning the last 4 weeks, another figure appeared in the background. A young man maintaining careful distance behind Morrison, always wearing different clothing combinations. Hoodie and jeans one day, baseball cap and windbreaker the next, glasses and beanie another time. The follower was methodical in his approach but clearly amateur, sometimes getting too close to his target, occasionally lingering too obviously near doorways or bus stops. Carter isolated the clearest images and ran them through facial recognition. The results made her stomach drop. Jason Chen, 24, software developer at Microsoft, resident of Bellevue. More importantly, he was the boyfriend of victim number 4, Amanda Chen, whose body had been discovered just 4 weeks earlier in Discovery Park. Carter pulled Chen's interview transcript immediately. He'd been questioned for 3 hours, 48 hours after Amanda's body was found. Detective Harrison from Seattle PD had conducted the interview, asking standard questions about Amanda's final days, potential threats, and Chen's whereabouts during the estimated time of murder. Chen's answers had been consistent, emotional, and seemingly credible. He claimed he'd been working late at Microsoft's campus with security badge records and co-worker testimony supporting his alibi. Most critically, he'd stated multiple times that he'd never seen anyone suspicious around Amanda and had no information about potential stalkers or threats. The surveillance footage told a completely different story. Carter called her supervisor, Special Agent in Charge Williams, at 2:47 a.m. The situation was unprecedented. They had a serial killer to capture, but now they also had a civilian conducting his own amateur investigation, possibly planning vigilante justice. The legal implications were staggering if Chen interfered with their operation. "We need 2 coordinated teams," Carter explained to Williams during an emergency briefing. "Alpha Team continues tracking Morrison using established surveillance protocols. Bravo Team locates and monitors Chen to prevent him from compromising our investigation." Williams authorized additional resources immediately. The Chen situation transformed a routine serial killer investigation into a complex multi-target operation requiring careful coordination. The next morning brought immediate complications. Morrison left his apartment at 6:23 a.m., taking an unusual route through Pike Place Market that suggested possible counter-surveillance awareness. Traffic cameras tracked him purchasing supplies, rope, duct tape, garbage bags that indicated he was preparing for another murder. More concerning, Chen's Honda Civic appeared in the same camera feeds, maintaining a careful but detectable distance behind Morrison's stolen pickup truck. Carter coordinated the pursuit from the FBI Mobile Command Center, while maintaining radio contact with both surveillance teams. Morrison's cell phone was active, providing GPS tracking, but his erratic driving patterns suggested he might be trying to lose a tail. Chen's phone had been turned off since the previous evening, but highway cameras confirmed both vehicles heading east toward the Cascade Mountains. The situation escalated when Morrison's phone pinged a cell tower near Snoqualmie Pass, then went dead. Satellite imagery revealed dozens of logging roads and abandoned structures in the area. Without active GPS tracking, finding Morrison became exponentially more difficult. Chen's vehicle disappeared from camera coverage at the same location, suggesting he was still following his target despite the challenging mountain terrain. Carter deployed helicopter surveillance while ground teams searched access roads. The search area covered over 40 square miles of dense forest and abandoned logging operations. Time was critical. If Morrison was preparing to commit another murder, every minute of delay potentially cost an innocent life. The breakthrough came when the helicopter pilot spotted fresh tire tracks on an old logging road that hadn't been used commercially since the early 2000s. The tracks led to a remote hunting cabin 2 miles from the nearest public road. Property records indicated the cabin had belonged to Morrison's deceased uncle, Harold Morrison, who died in 2019. Thermal imaging from the helicopter confirmed 2 heat signatures inside the cabin, one stationary near the center of the structure, one moving around the main room. The positioning suggested one person was restrained while the other was active. Carter made the tactical decision to approach immediately rather than establish a prolonged perimeter. Chen had been inside for approximately 15 minutes, according to thermal tracking. His amateur status made his intentions unpredictable. The FBI tactical team reached the cabin at 3:47 p.m., moving silently through dense underbrush. Through a broken window on the east side, they could observe the interior clearly. Morrison was tied to a wooden chair with climbing rope, conscious but showing signs of trauma. Blood ran from his nose and a cut above his left eyebrow. Chen stood beside him holding a hunting knife. Carter positioned herself outside the front door while tactical officers covered both side exits and the rear. She tested the door handle, unlocked. Chen's amateur status was evident in his failure to secure his position. "FBI! Nobody move!" Carter kicked the front door open and entered with her service weapon drawn. Chen spun around immediately, hunting knife still gripped in his right hand, his face displaying a mixture of rage, grief, determination, and sudden fear. Morrison lifted his head with effort, focusing on Carter with calculating eyes despite his obvious discomfort. Blood continued dripping from his facial injuries, but his breathing appeared normal. "Drop the weapon immediately, Jason," Carter commanded. "Step away from Morrison right now." Chen made no move to comply. "You don't understand what this monster did to Amanda." "I understand completely. We've been investigating Morrison for weeks, but this isn't the way to handle the situation. He killed 7 women while you federal agents spent months chasing shadows and analyzing footage." Carter kept her weapon trained on Chen while quickly assessing the tactical situation. Morrison was injured, but not critically. Chen was clearly emotional and grieving, but he wasn't displaying complete irrationality. The situation could potentially be de-escalated. "Jason, we've been tracking Morrison for 3 weeks. We would have arrested him within 48 hours maximum." 48 hours? How many more innocent women die during those 48 hours while you build your perfect case? None, because we know exactly who he is now. But if you hurt him, we lose the opportunity to find out if there are additional victims. Other families deserve answers. Chen's grip on the knife handle tightened visibly. "I don't care about other families. This piece of garbage murdered Amanda." "Amanda wouldn't want you to become a murderer yourself. You know that's true." For several seconds, Chen's resolve seemed to waver slightly. Carter pressed her advantage. "Think about Amanda's parents, Jason. They've already lost their daughter to violence. Do you want them to lose you too when you go to prison for murder?" Chen looked down at Morrison, who was observing the exchange with detached interest. "He doesn't deserve to continue living." "Maybe not. But making that decision isn't your responsibility." Carter took one careful step forward. "Put the knife down, Jason. Let us handle this through proper legal channels." Chen raised the knife higher, angling the blade toward Morrison's throat area. "Legal channels? Your legal system allowed him to kill 7 women over 8 months. The legal system will put him in prison forever, but only if he's alive to stand trial and face justice." Morrison spoke for the first time since Carter's entry, his voice hoarse but clear. "The boy is absolutely right, Agent Carter. I don't deserve to live another day." Carter shot Morrison a sharp warning look. "Nobody asked for your opinion." But Morrison continued speaking, his tone becoming conversational. "7 confirmed kills, Agent Carter, but Jason doesn't know about the others yet." Chen's eyes widened with shock and renewed anger. "What others are you talking about?" Carter realized Morrison was deliberately manipulating the situation, attempting to provoke Chen into immediate violence before FBI could establish control. "Don't listen to anything he says, Jason. He's playing psychological games." Morrison's expression shifted to something resembling a smile. "Tell him about Portland, Agent Carter. Tell him about the 3 women I killed there last year." Carter saw Chen's knuckles turning white around the knife handle. Morrison was systematically pushing Chen past his breaking point. "Jason, focus on my voice, not his lies. Look at me, not him." But Chen was staring directly at Morrison now. "How many other women have you murdered?" Morrison's smile widened with satisfaction. "Amanda was particularly special among my collection. She fought much harder than most of them did." The words hit Chen like a physical assault. Carter saw the exact moment when grief overwhelmed rational thinking. "Jason, don't let him manipulate you." Chen plunged the hunting knife downward toward Morrison's chest with all his strength. Carter lunged forward desperately, but Chen's proximity gave him advantage. The blade struck Morrison just below his left rib cage, penetrating deep into his torso with a wet, tearing sound. Morrison gasped loudly and slumped forward in the chair. Blood began spreading rapidly across his shirt, soaking through the fabric and dripping onto the wooden floor. Carter tackled Chen immediately, knocking him away from Morrison and wresting the bloody knife from his grip. Chen offered no resistance. All fight seemed to drain out of him once the blade made contact with flesh. "Get paramedics up here immediately," Carter shouted while zip-tying Chen's hands. "We have 1 critical injury, 1 in custody." But Carter could observe Morrison's breathing becoming increasingly shallow and irregular. The hunting knife had found a major artery, and blood was pooling faster than any paramedic response could realistically address, given their remote location. Morrison looked up at Carter with rapidly dimming eyes. "Portland, 3 more bodies, buried behind the old Riverside textile mill on Division Street." Those were Daniel Morrison's final words. He died in the mountain cabin at 4:03 p.m. Chen sat motionless on the cabin floor, staring at Morrison's lifeless body with complete emotional emptiness. When Carter read him his Miranda rights, he simply nodded. "I don't regret what I did," Chen said quietly. "Amanda can finally rest in peace now." The investigation that followed Morrison's death revealed the true scope of his criminal activities. His Capitol Hill apartment contained a horrifying collection demonstrating years of methodical stalking and murder. Hidden throughout were photographs of over 40 women, most taken without their knowledge using telephoto lenses. Morrison's bedroom closet concealed a safe containing jewelry and personal items from his confirmed victims. Each piece was labeled with dates and locations. The safe also contained driver's licenses from women whose disappearances had never been connected to Morrison. The Portland information led investigators to an abandoned textile mill where 3 additional bodies were discovered. The victims were identified as local women who had disappeared over 18 months. Their murders brought Morrison's confirmed count to 10. Morrison's apartment contained even more disturbing evidence. A detailed journal documented his hunting methods, victim selection criteria, and psychological observations about each woman he had killed. The entries revealed a highly organized predator who had been systematically escalating over 5 years. Most chilling were Morrison's entries about future projects, a meticulously researched list of 16 additional women he had been surveilling for potential murders. The list included detailed personal information and attack scenarios. The forensic team discovered Morrison's kill room in the apartment building's basement storage unit. The concrete walls showed extensive staining cleaned with industrial bleach. Power tools, restraints, surgical instruments, and recording equipment suggested systematic torture before murder. The basement contained personal belongings from all 10 confirmed victims, organized in clear plastic bins labeled with victim names and murder dates. Jason Chen was charged with voluntary manslaughter rather than first-degree murder. The prosecutor acknowledged that Morrison's deliberate psychological manipulation had contributed directly to Chen's loss of control. Chen's cooperation and the discovery of Morrison's extensive victim list supported arguments that immediate action had prevented additional murders. During the sentencing hearing, Chen addressed the court directly. "I loved Amanda more than my own life. When that monster killed her, he destroyed part of my soul forever. I don't expect forgiveness for taking the law into my own hands, but I cannot feel sorry that Daniel Morrison is dead and can never hurt another innocent woman." Chen received 6 years in state prison. The judge noted that while his actions were psychologically understandable, vigilante justice could not be tolerated regardless of circumstances. The families of Morrison's victims expressed mixed reactions. Some felt cheated of the opportunity to confront their loved one's killer during a public trial. Others expressed quiet satisfaction that Morrison would never threaten anyone again. Amanda Chen's parents visited Jason regularly during his incarceration. During one emotional visit, Amanda's mother shared something that changed his perspective. "Amanda always said you were too gentle for this violent world. Please don't let what happened to her transform you into something she wouldn't recognize." Agent Carter received commendation for her handling of the investigation, but the case's resolution continued troubling her. Morrison was dead, eliminating a dangerous predator. However, the system had failed at several points. Chen's deception had gone undetected, Morrison had continued operating while under surveillance, and the confrontation had escalated beyond her control. The case became mandatory study material at the FBI Academy, demonstrating how personal grief could complicate law enforcement objectives. Chen served 4.5 years before being released on parole. He relocated to Portland, working with victim advocacy groups to help families navigate the criminal justice system. The mountain cabin where Morrison died was demolished, and the land donated to the Washington State Park System. A memorial marker listed Morrison's 10 confirmed victims. Years later, Carter reflected that Chen had accomplished what the FBI couldn't, permanently stopping Morrison's killing spree. But the cost was Chen's future and the loss of potential evidence about additional victims. The case files remained sealed, but the questions about law enforcement versus personal justice continued influencing Carter's approach to every subsequent investigation. Morrison was dead, and his terror ended. Chen had paid with years of his life. The system had worked imperfectly, but nobody felt victorious. The double hunt concluded with 1 death and 1 imprisonment, but the moral complexities of justice versus revenge continued resonating long after the case closed.